legal tradition and really understand what, for example, classical jihad theory is, or what do the texts actually say about gender relations, or a variety of issues, and then I try to encourage students to. So I try to encourage students, my Muslim students, and those with whom I communicate, to confront what is uncomfortable in our tradition. I mean, so you talked about hadith earlier. I mean, we cannot ignore the fact that the hadith tradition has come under a tremendous scrutiny by Western scholars of Islam, and it is so easy. This is really disturbing. It is so easy for people to take an ideological stance over the authenticity of the hadith. If you're a good Muslim, you hold the hadith literature to be authentic by rejecting any possibility of the validity of the research that has been done by Western scholars. And if you accept that there is some validity to the criticism of the hadith literature, then somehow your Islam is called into question. I mean, it's a perfect parallel to what's happening when, who was it, the representative, was it the representative from Minnesota who just said that, we need to conduct an all-out investigation into the patriotism of congressional members, Somehow you can test a person's Americanism by, So the same thing is happening within Muslims, as if somehow your stance on the golden age or the hadith literature or something somehow is indicative of your piety. And so I try to encourage Muslims, my students, to look honestly at these things, to confront what's uncomfortable rather than hiding their heads in the sand, and also then to draw on what's positive about the tradition, because this is another area where there's a lot of ignorance, both on the part of Muslims as well as non-Muslims. The Islamic ethical legal tradition and theological tradition is incredibly sophisticated, and I see some of my students in the audience, they've been reading these texts with me for a while. They know that there's an incredible depth and nuance in these texts. So that's one thing. And the second thing that I'm really trying to encourage, or at least feel very strongly about, is the importance of authentic communication. And when I say authentic communication, I mean communication that recognizes the I in thou, that is able to recognize the subjectivity of the other person. So, when there are interfaith discussions that go on, you can't just assume that, you open the minds of everybody else that's listening to you and pour a bunch of content into their minds, and somehow then they'll become convinced of your argument and convert, or whatever it is that's supposed to happen. It's a very uncomfortable thing, but I think that's where I see my role.
Okay. That brings us to a close of this session. A story that Rabbi Komorowski referred to, but is in all three of our traditions, is the story of the burning bush. And Moses encountered this bush, and he was instructed to take off his shoes in order to enter into the sacred precincts and have this conversation with God. What is not in the tradition, but I know because I was there, is that after this conversation was ended, he left and he had to put on his shoes and then go to work. So I think now is our time to put on our shoes and go to work. Thank you.